and thank you for joining me. My name is Stephen Perlin, and I am here today at UHS Binghamton General Hospital in the Russell Room for a very important topic. That topic is mental health. You may or you may not know that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's a very important topic, and obviously we all know mental health is extremely important. A lot of things affect mental health. It might be some stress at work, a deadline you have to hit, a relationship issue. There's numerous issues that really can affect us and kind of take us down a level, but it's always important to make sure to monitor your mental health, make sure that you know how you're feeling, deal with these stresses, and we all have different ways to deal with these stresses, obviously. Sometimes we binge eat, sometimes we do a couple of different things. I know stress balls are pretty popular. Well, we're going to help you eat a little better because you may or may not know food does affect your mental state and obviously your stress levels. Joining me today is UHS registered dietitian Janelle Oakley, and she's going to shed some light on this for us. Thanks for joining me today, Janelle.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about this. As you mentioned, there are a lot of different ways to cope with your mental health and your stress levels. Sometimes binge eating is one of those issues, but it is important to watch what you're eating to kind of help manage that stress and to look at different ways that we can monitor and make a change in what we're doing.
Which is always important, and I think for me, when I first heard about this, I was a little bit surprised because I thought, no, I'm just eating, it's not a big deal, but I didn't realize that stress could be affecting it or causing me to eat a different way, or what I'm eating could affect how my stress levels or just my mental state in general. Maybe I'm a little bit down because of what I'm eating, or maybe I'm just not as peppy or up as I should be for these lives. I'm okay today though, don't worry. But yeah, let's get into this and tell us a little bit more about what we should be watching and how it affects us.
Yeah, so as we mentioned already, binge eating is one of the common things that happens with stress. People may or may not be aware of it. It's kind of funny, some people when they get stressed, they don't eat at all, but for the majority of us, a lot of us will tend to eat too much. I'm one of those. I'll just start picking at things and, after 10 minutes you realize you ate an entire bag of chips. Like, that's an issue.
But at the same time, not eating is probably just as unhealthy or not as good for you, I assume.
Correct, yeah. And that's when you kind of have to take a mental check on yourself to see what you've had that day, and even if you're just drinking something throughout the day, that can help make a difference.
So it might be good to pay attention. If you have a lack of appetite, or all of a sudden you're not eating like you usually would, or you're not as interested in certain type of foods, maybe it has something to do with your mental state, and it is something to look at.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
That's good to know.
With binge eating, it's kind of a funny process. It's not just our mental status that's causing that. It actually is a hormone that is produced when we get stressed that causes us to be more hungry. It's called ghrelin. I don't expect anyone to know what that is, but that...
Good, as long as we're not being tested.
Yeah, not yet. That hormone actually tells our stomach that we're hungry, and when we're stressed, our body starts to produce more of that hormone. So that's why a lot of us find that we start to binge eat, because we physically are getting hungrier. Unfortunately, there's no way that we can stop that from happening, but we can be more mindful of what we're putting into our body during those times.
That's the trick, I think, because obviously you can't fight hunger, and you shouldn't fight hunger. It's usually not good for you.
Yeah.
But it's about what we're putting in our body, so that we're not just going for the most unhealthy thing just because, oh, this is satisfying, or the saltiest treat, whatever it might be.
Right, and I'm glad you mentioned salty, because there are two things that a lot of people will tend to crave and snack on when they get stressed. There's salty and there's sweet.
Makes sense.
And there are different ways that we can impact those. We want to actually honor those cravings, otherwise you kind of fixate on it and you'll start to binge even more. So when we honor those cravings, we can get a little bit of it, satisfy ourselves, and then move on from it. And there are different ways that we want to satisfy those cravings in the healthiest way that we can.
Of course.
So when I get stressed, I tend to try to go for more of the salty things. And yes, I do in my kitchen usually have like Pringles around or Goldfish or something.
Always a good snack.
Always a good snack, always salty, it fixes that craving. But something else that you can have around that would be very helpful is something like salted nuts, any type of nuts. Because not only is that satisfying the salt craving, but it's providing vitamin E and omega-3 fatty acids, which are very beneficial when we are stressed, because they are actually protective of our cells, especially our brain cells. So they prevent oxidative damage, which can happen when we are very stressed. And so we want to provide more of those nutrients It'll kind of coat those cells and prevent that damage from happening. And any damage that we can prevent, especially with our brain, we definitely want to go for.
Well, that's good. Well, I mean, just in general, I mean, a salty treat obviously usually isn't thought about as healthy, but it's nice that these nuts are also providing some benefits on top of just satisfying that craving.
Absolutely. And you can have more than just those nuts too. That's just one of the most common sources of it. If you have it available, you can always do like tuna. You could do a little bit of tuna salad. They make those little pouches. Those are really good. You can also do salmon, different types of seeds, even things like spinach and avocados have a lot of vitamin E and omega-3 fatty acids in them that can be helpful.
Really?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm a little stressed. I can pop up some guacamole and eat that. That will help me a little bit. It's got some avocado in there.
Absolutely. Even with a little bit of like tortilla chips.
All right. Oh yeah, there's extra salt in there. Okay.
Extra salt. It'll satisfy you.
All right. Good to know.
Yeah, and it helps to put them in their own serving. Don't eat directly from the jar or the bag. Pour it out into a different bowl. That way you're not tempted to eat everything that's there. Oftentimes we just don't think when we're stressed, and so we tend to just eat everything that's there.
Yeah, just going through the motion, grabbing chip out of the bag. You're not really thinking about it.
Yeah, I fall for that all the time, but I have found that if I actually like measure it out, put it in a different bowl, then I can visually see when I'm done, and that helps me to not binge as much.
Yeah, or even, I mean, the snack bags they come in too. There's always obviously smaller snack bags. I know there's those like 1,000-calorie snacks out there, but stuff like that helps you slow down a little bit and not eat everything right there and then and there. Oof.
Absolutely.
And obviously, so now we're eating. We might get a little thirsty here, obviously, because we've had some of the salty snacks. We're doing some of this and that. What should I do about drinking? Obviously, I want to have something that's not going to set me off or just make me jittery or, really bad or, even more stressed in any situation.
Right. So a lot of people, when they're stressed, me included, drinks a lot of caffeinated beverages. It's something that people just in general drink a lot of caffeine. The national recommendation is no more than 400 milligrams per day. Like no more. That's the cap for normal adults. Okay. If you're pregnant or lactating, you don't want to hit more than 200 milligrams per day. Children, it should be minimal to none.
That makes sense for children, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to hyper child.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're hyper enough.
Yeah. Unfortunately, most of the things that we're drinking are very caffeinated, and we're hitting that level or exceeding it so easily. I have a bunch of different drinks here. I even have something that I know a lot of my friends have, pre-workout, which essentially is just caffeine. And I labeled the amount of caffeine in these beverages. I tried to go from like highest to lowest.
Oh, wow.
And as you can see, a lot of them hit like halfway, or even in like this case of just a large drip coffee that exceeds your limit.
Oh, wow.
I often will drink multiple of these drinks, and I know a lot of people will do that too.
But we're not encouraging that.
Not encouraging it. Because when you are drinking a lot of caffeine, you notice that your heart rate gets really fast. That can give you more anxiety, but it also prevents the function of some hormones in your body from telling you that you're full, and it'll actually slow or increase your digestion. You'll get hungrier, you'll start to eat more. That can cause more stress, and you get jittery. You just don't want to do that.
Yeah, it sounds like that's a slippery slope, and it's just going to get worse and worse for you, especially if you are already some sort of edge with your mental state or your your mental health in general. You want to make sure that you're not increasing or making it worse because you're adding to that issue.
Absolutely. Yeah. Instead of drinking things like this, there are other beverages you can have. If you want something hot, you can try like an herbal tea or even hot chocolate. It has a little bit of caffeine in it, not nearly as much as these.
Yeah.
You could do a decaffeinated soda. Be careful of the sugar content, because that can also increase your stress level. You could also try tart cherry juice. That is a great source of natural melatonin, which is associated with sleep. And what happens when you sleep? You relax.
You're calm, yeah.
Yeah, so it's not going to put you to sleep unless you're like chugging gallons of it a day, but it can actually relax you a bit. You can mix it with some other types of beverages, and I find that it tastes really good when you mix it with some like Diet Sprite or some apple juice.
So that's a good tip too, because I mean, if there's drinks that will relax you, that's always nice too. And especially if you are jittery, maybe you did have too many of these drinks, or you're just stressed in general. Maybe a deadline, like I said, is coming up, or anything like with work. That always happens, and I know everyday life, we have a million different factors thrown at us that can increase stress and mess with our mental health.
Yeah, and if you do find that you drank too much of these, which happens a lot, try to flush it out with water.
Okay.
Water's the best thing that'll help all your bodily functions. Most people aren't drinking enough to begin with, so try to replace what you can of your caffeinated beverages with water. If not, just try to be more mindful of how much water you are drinking.
That makes sense. All right, Janelle, any other tips you have for us that help us with our limiting stress or not increasing stress when we already are?
The only other thing is that if you find you're really struggling with your stress, definitely reach out to some mental health professionals.
Absolutely.
Diet, exercise, getting your mind off things can only go so far. If you're really struggling, reach out before it gets bad.
Yeah, that's a great point. And obviously, you can go to NYUHS. We have plenty of services that can help you with your mental health, and we have professionals that can work with you. And I know, like you said, people do like the exercise to relieve stress, and that's a great way to do it. But sometimes things can only go so far. Maybe you have to talk about it, and you have to get it off your chest, whatever it might be. But it's always good to seek out a professional because they are here, and we are here for you. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Janelle. This was very interesting. I know I'm going to make sure when I am stressed, I am watching what I eat, maybe slowing down a little bit, and I'm certainly going to avoid a little bit of my caffeine intakes, so I'm not jittery and maybe not too excitable. So thank you again for joining us. I hope everybody out there got some information and really learned something today. Head to nyuhs.org if you have any more questions about nutrition or if you're looking for a professional for your mental health. Thank you for joining us today.